I'm Eric Anderson. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a tribute in San Diego today to military veterans. Thousands turned out for a sun-splashed parade along the city's waterfront. And San Diego humanitarian teams are rushing to provide help to the typhoon-devastated Philippines. But some efforts are being hampered because of the large scale of destruction.
I'm Peggy Pico. Also ahead, what's being done to help San Diego veterans get temporary and affordable housing. Plus, San Diego's congressional members Scott Peters and Susan Davis stopped by on a busy Veterans Day to talk about plans to help veterans in the upcoming congressional session.
The newest exhibit at the new Children's Museum downtown lets kids bang pots and pans, feed chickens, make clay cupcakes, or play with giant fruits and vegetables. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Dwayne Brown is off tonight. Thousands of people lined the sides of San Diego's Harbor Drive to honor the nation's military veterans today. The event featured Pearl Harbor survivors, Vietnam veterans, and even junior ROTC members. KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov and I were there to catch the flavor of the city's parade for military vets.
Veterans are the strongest supporters of this country you have. They support this country with their life if they have to. So you can't get much more dedication than that. They are very dedicated to this country.
When you come back and you don't see that you're appreciated by the public, it's hard. But when we come out on things like this and we see the kids on the side with the flags, and one year I saw some lady, she was sitting there holding a picture of her son, you know, or a family member, and she was sitting there on the side and just holding the picture and hugging it, and it just made me cry.
It's like a big celebration, you know, you don't even have the words, you know, to describe, you know, the feeling, you know, that people would actually take out the time of the day, you know, to honor, you know, these, you know, men and women, you know, for the armed forces.
If they're supporting anyone in the military, then they're supporting the military. Supporting one person or supporting a group of us. I mean, we consider ourselves a family in the Navy. It's deeper than just a job. It's a family.
You're a part of it. You'll always be a part of it. They'll always have their own individual experiences, but it just reinforces the fact that everything we do, everything around us is one brotherhood. Regardless of your service, whether you're in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, or the Marine Corps, it's all one service, and we can all stand behind each other on any point and occasion.
President Obama honored veterans today by laying a wreath at Arlington National Cemetery, and he made a commitment to the veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
But part of the reason we're here today is to pledge that we will never forget the profound sacrifices that are made in our name. And that's our promise to you and all who've served. To be there, to support you when you come home, every step of the way.
Some San Diego emergency relief groups are working to provide hope in the Philippines. That region was devastated by the strongest typhoon on record. Local relief workers are mobilizing fundraising drives, sending food and supplies, and helping San Diego Filipinos reconnect with family members.
The priorities right now are shelter, because there are more than 600,000 people displaced. There are 9.5 million people affected. So priority is shelter, sanitation, hygiene. We are distributing tents that can take 5 people per tent.
The San Diego International Relief Team is also helping to provide emergency supplies, including clean water and canned food for up to 15,000 people for a week. But they say operations have been stymied because of the massive destruction. There are ways you can help. You can find them on our website at kpbs.org. San Diego is home to the largest veteran population in the country. Peggy Pico takes a closer look at housing and job issues that face veterans today and what's being done to help.
Governor Jerry Brown signed several bills last month to help veterans with transitional and affordable housing. Here with more on what that means to former military troops in San Diego is Phil Landis, President and Executive Director of the Veterans Village of San Diego. Welcome back, Phil.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, there's 1 in 4 homeless people in San Diego, I understand, are military veterans. What are the demographics of this group right now compared to the pre-9/11 conflicts?
Well, that's a great question, and it really talks about what our future is going to be. Our demographics are shifting, and as you might presuppose, we are seeing a lot more younger men and women.
And women, speaking of that, there seems to be a surge, or at least plenty of reports about it, about sexual trauma in the military, especially for women. Are you seeing military sexual trauma issues more in the veterans that you talk with?
Yeah, we are. In fact, every one of the young women that come to us for assistance is suffering in part with military sexual trauma. It is a growing problem for our population.
How do you assist them?
Well, it takes a lot of gentle guidance. Safety is a major concern, and time. Just time in a right therapeutic environment helps a great deal.
And we'll come back to that when we're talking about the housing situation. How much money could San Diego get from the governor's bill to fund affordable housing, and how soon might we see it here?
Boy, that's a great question. First of all, we can't see it soon enough, but the answer is how much, we just don't know. We know that there's a pot out there of $600 million. It's statewide, and I will tell you that San Diego is certainly going to be out there, looking for an appropriate amount for our community.
Certainly, because we have one of the largest veterans populations, homeless veterans populations for sure, but veteran populations in the United States.
Yes, we do.
How would you like to see that money spent specifically here in San Diego?
Well, I'd like to see us build more permanent housing for low-income and deserving veterans. We know that there is a need for that. In fact, our agency, Veterans Village, is in the process of building permanent housing, but we need more of it.
How about for dorms, especially I'm thinking coming back to the military women who might need to be in separate quarters as far as people staying for their safety or their feeling of safety?
Well, feeling of safety is correct. There's a difference between reality and perception. If your perception is you're not safe, you're not safe. So you need separate quarters, if possible, and we'd like to build them.
Would there be any of this money spent on dorms or temporary housing as well?
Well, there's a multitude of different housing styles. I don't know how a dormitory would play out in all of this, but whatever's most efficient is what we should be doing.
Update us on the permanent housing situation for homeless veterans right now. Where do we stand right now?
Well, there's very little of it. When we say permanent housing, we're thinking in terms of a shelter that affords long-term residency for a veteran. And when we think in terms of veteran permanent housing, we want to create communities of veterans. That seems to work best and it's most therapeutic.
Okay, I know housing is the first step, but I understand there could be some more accessible medical clinics coming to San Diego. Give us an update on that.
Well, that's very cool. One of the things that we've identified is a lack of outpatient mental health clinics in San Diego County. And that, again, is an initiative that Veterans Village is looking at to develop. And wouldn't be a bad idea to do it in partnership with the VA as well.
Some storefront types where they were more accessible, or I should say accessible.
Right.
How about jobs, training and job placement? What's going on in San Diego for that, for our veterans?
It's a tough economy. I mean, it's difficult not only for veterans, but it is for non-veterans as well that are seeking employment. Remember, there's a difference between employment and life-sustaining employment. You can work for $7 an hour, but you're not going to sustain yourself very well. And so we want to attract businesses, from employers within our community that will provide life-sustaining opportunities for our veterans, but it is a struggle.
And you're a Vietnam veteran, correct? On a personal note, do you think things are getting better or worse for people leaving the military?
Well, I think they're getting much better. I mean, when I look at our generation of warriors, when we came home, we weren't very well received by American society. It's the antithesis of that today. It's phenomenal today. People have opened up their arms and they're saying, hey, come on, you know, we welcome you. What can we do to help you? I think that is the lasting benefit of our generation pushing it forward.
And Phil, what do you think the challenge, if you had to name the top couple of challenges for the military troops coming home, for the veterans today, what do you think that would be?
Well, it's more than a couple, but I would say employment. We touched upon that. It is critical. And the other is mental health care.
Okay. Phil Landis, thank you very much for this update on Veterans Day.
Oh, thank you. It's been an honor to be here.
Veterans now make up almost 30% of the federal government workforce. A new report out of the Office of Personnel Management also shows 29% of the federal government's new hires last year were veterans. Not surprisingly, 45% of the Defense Department employees nationwide are veterans. In the last 5 years, the number of disabled vets employed by the federal government has risen to more than 200,000 people. Cal State San Marcos is making room on campus for a big gift to veteran and active duty students. They've broken ground on a new standalone Veterans Center. The 1,000 square foot building is a donation from a student at New Jersey's Stevens Institute of Technology. They designed the Smart House for the Energy Department's 2013 Solar Decathlon. CSU San Marcos President Karen Haynes says the school community takes great pride in its reputation as one of the country's best universities for veterans.
And we're not done. We will continue to create new programs. We are now going to hire our first ever Veterans Center director, and we just completed our Veterans and Active Duty Strategic Plan.
The Veterans Center is set to open next fall. In addition to using solar power, it was built with sustainable materials and has sensors around the building to use power and water efficiently. Congressmembers Susan Davis and Scott Peters joined Peggy Pico for an in-depth look at issues that are facing veterans here in San Diego.
Back in March, the Center for Investigative Reporting found more than 250,000 veterans throughout the U.S. had to wait more than a year to receive disability benefits. Since then, the backlog of benefit delays to veterans has dropped to 34,000, and the average wait time today is 168 days. Here with more on that issue and others facing veterans are Congressmembers Susan Davis, representing San Diego's 53rd District, and Scott Peters for San Diego's 52nd District. Both are members of the House Armed Services Committee. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Congresswoman Davis, despite the recent improvements, veterans in San Diego are averaging now about 150 days for a delay in getting back to their benefits. How is Congress addressing this backlog issue?
They're addressing it partly by bringing on more people to help with it, and I think that's why we were able to make some gains. But, you know, it's not good enough. I think that we all share that commitment to making certain that each veteran's has their benefits looked at over a relatively short period of time, because for every one of those folks who are waiting, you have a family that is, in some cases, suffering because of the need to have the kind of help and assistance that they need. So I'm glad that we're doing that. Actually, during the shutdown of the government and even sequestration, we had some, we had opportunities, I think, to make better gains, and that was lost. We have a 2-year bill for veterans, and in January, we're going to need a new budget. So that budget is going to be gone, and we need to absolutely be certain that we have the people there who are trained and who are able to pick up and continue with the efforts that have been made, because otherwise we're going to lose those gains, and we need to have the gains and then move forward.
To go forward. And going forward on that, Congressman Peters, you personally helped speed up the process for individual veterans. What other issues are you planning to address in the next congressional session?
Well, in the congressional session, well, first of all, I would say, just to back up what Susan's saying, is it's amazing to me as a freshman how much time my own personal staff in San Diego spends, congressional staff spends on dealing with these veterans' issues. So we take a lot of calls, we make a lot of calls for people into the VA, the Department of Defense, to get people the benefits that they've earned. And in fact, we totaled up at the end of September, I think it was $398,000 worth of benefits. And those are things that real people count on. So in addition to preventing suicides and things like that can happen if the VA responds, we have young families who are struggling to pay the bills, who've earned those benefits, or whose spouses or parents have earned the benefits. And we've had to work hard to get that even through our office.
And you actually, you introduced a bill, the Veterans Employment Transition Act. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Sure. Well, we would like to make it easier for vets who are returning from the Gulf to get jobs. And so this has two basic parts. One is a $2,400 tax credit for a company that hires a veteran and keeps him or her on the payroll for a certain amount of time. And the other is we want to deal with some of the certification. So in the private sector, if you have technical skills, you often get a certificate of competency as part of that. And the military is not giving that for skills that have been learned on a ship or in the battlefield. So we'd like a vet to have that when he or she hits the job market, rather than having to go take a course and spend $500 in 3 weeks.
Another big issue, Congresswoman Davis, is that from the ACLU, a new report that they compiled, is that VA grants, they said, as far as disability claims for military sexual trauma-related PTSD, were significantly lower as far as handling those than other PTSD claims. One question to you is, are you surprised by that? And two, do you think there's something Congress can do to sort of tackle this military sexual trauma that we keep hearing more about?
Well, I absolutely do think there's more that we can do. One of the big changes, and actually in the last defense bill, which we haven't formally passed yet because we still haven't conferenced it, but in that particular bill, we have gone far beyond where we've gone in terms of the way we support the man or woman, because we do have men who also witness or have experienced sexual trauma, that they have support counselors who can follow their cases. One of the real problems that we've had is the lack of continuity in dealing with those cases and in making certain that people who are going to trial have the kind of really help that they need, the counseling that they need.
Okay, there's so many topics to cover, and unfortunately we are out of time. So Congress members Scott Peters and Susan Davis, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thanks. You.
Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More than 100,000 international students studied in California during the last school year. The state is the top destination in the United States for international students. And that's according to a study from the Institute of International Education and the U.S. State Department. Nearly half of all foreign students studying in California are from China, South Korea, and India. The top field of study for foreign students in the U.S. is business and management. The new Children's Museum in downtown San Diego changes exhibits every couple of years. The museum's newest show is called Feast. It's the art of playing with your food. KPBS culture reporter Angela Carone gives us a taste of what families can expect from the Contemporary Art Museum geared toward kids.
Have a banana, Anna. Try the salami, Tommy. Give it the gravy, Davy. Everybody eats when they come to my house.
This is Barbara, and this is Jimbo. They've recently moved into a coop at the new Children's Museum. It's not often you see a chicken in a contemporary art museum.
So you're going to be meeting our chickens today. Does anybody know why we even have chickens here at the museum?
They have to perform for the kids, but that just involves a lot of eating and petting. Not a bad gig, really. 8-year-old Rachel Silverstein is visiting the museum from Connecticut.
Well, the chickens are soft, and when you feed them, they're ticklish a lot when they peck you. I think they enjoyed it, but I'm not positive.
The chickens are part of a new museum-wide exhibit called Feast, the art of playing with your food. Kids are notoriously picky about food. Vegetables, for example, are a tough sell. And why actually eat food when it's so fun to play with? Tomoko Kuta is the co-curator of Feast. She says her 6-year-old son is pretty good about food, but even he has his quirks.
He's a bit of a lazy chewer. So if it's not a soft, textured food item, he'll kind of steer away from it.
Feast is meant to get kids thinking about food. There are 13 art installations in the show. Kids don't like to eat unfamiliar foods, so some works are meant to breed familiarity. Again, Tomoko Kuta.
Kids may not have eaten a tomato, but if to see it, sort of giant scale and then play with it, then, once they're home, they might be able to continue the conversation. Okay, well, so I played with the tomato at the museum. Maybe I'll try a slice now and see what it tastes like.
Other works are meant to teach kids where food comes from, like this abstract orange grove by artist Nina Weissman. As kids walk and climb through the grove, they activate a medley of sounds. They hear orange pickers describing their work.
Picking oranges, you have a bag around your shoulder.
Songs about oranges. Oranges. And the sound of eating an orange. The exhibit extends across the street from the museum in a garden by urban plantation founder Karen Contreras. Kids learn how to grow food and help tend to the garden.
And I think it's good for kids, for their nutrition, for their health, to see what food looks like, to taste what food tastes like when it's fresh. When you get broccoli in the market, sometimes it doesn't taste so good, but when you harvest it and steam it right out of the garden, it's delicious.
It can be tough to get kids outdoors and away from their phones, video games, and computers.
Have kids develop senses other than their thumb muscles and, looking at a screen. I think that's one of the beauties of a space like this. It can really bring them down to earth.
There's a lot to learn at Feast, but much of the artwork is just plain fun. The entrance by art collective Fallen Fruit is a banana scratch and sniff wall. There's a jumping machine, and there are food-related crafts, like making cupcakes out of clay.
An octopus strawberry cupcake.
This piece by San Diego artists Joe Yordi and John Brady is called Dinner TV. It's a giant dinner table, but once you crawl underneath, you can watch some pretty funny videos of kids eating.
And look at her.
And what is she eating? That is green.
Broccoli.
The musically inclined will have a ball in this work called Sound Kitchen by percussionist Ross Carr. In here, kids can rock out on kitchen instruments. But the chickens remain one of the most popular pieces. Artist Tat Phu Tan's collective of 5 chickens is called 5 p.m. West.
And the PM actually stands for poop machine, because that's essentially what chickens are. They eat and they poop, they lay eggs.
Charles Tanyakic helps care for the chickens. He says kids always have a lot of questions about them.
They're actually surprised about the fact that all of our chickens are hens and they're all girls. So that's actually a big surprise to them. They never expect that. So they expect which one's the boy, which one's the rooster, and they're always going to he. But we tell them they all lay eggs, and that's still surprising to them.
Eat the tables, the chairs, the napkins, who cares? You gotta eat if it chokes you.
Our food-obsessed culture has, until now, been the domain of adults. But an exhibit like Feast just might turn your 5-year-old into a foodie.
Everybody eats when they come to mind.
Angela Carone, KPBS News.
Kids were having a lot of fun there, obviously. They were not like the hundreds of El Cajon volunteers who were sweating it out this past Saturday. They were building a new playground at a local community center. KPBS reporter Taryn Mento was at the music-filled one-day construction project, and she says the new playground, not just for kids.
If you're anything like 11-year-old Danica Perez, the original playground at Bostonia Recreation Center didn't offer you much.
The old one was wrecky and boring and was sort of not safe.
And if you're anything like the a bit older American Legion members who hold meetings at the center, the play space didn't offer you much either. Luckily for both groups, there's Frank Carson, El Cajon's Recreation Services Manager.
Beginning of August, we got an email from the East County Economic Council saying, hey, there's this grant out there for playgrounds. Somebody should jump on it.
That somebody was him, And that grant was from Humana, on a mission to build multi-generational playgrounds for communities in need. What's a multi-generational playground, you ask? Humana's Russ Barber can answer that.
We're building a park for the kids of the community to enjoy and play in, and at the same time we're providing some fitness stations around the external portion of the park for adults.
The center's after-school program and its American Legion meetings earned Humana's multi-generational seal of approval. So on Saturday morning, volunteers from school children to veterans installed slides, climbing walls, yes, more than one, and exercise stations at the Bostonia Rec Center. It's Humana's first playground in San Diego County, and maybe even El Cajon's first playground that's made for the community by the community. 11-year-old Perez was the one who suggested the climbing walls. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, a program aimed at educating veterans and ensuring they get access to health care. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
Taking a look at the weather this week, warm temperatures going to be expected throughout the county. The coast is going to see some sun and clouds. Temperatures should be up in the 70s. Sunny in the inland valleys, could get as warm as 87 on Wednesday. Plenty of sunshine in the mountains, daytime temperatures in the 70s, and out in the desert, clear skies after some clouds tomorrow. Temperatures expected in the upper 80s. You can find tonight's stories and download the KPBS app. It's all on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks very much for joining us. Have a great evening.